you think you just relax over here, Sky?
Just a little bit. Got me wanting to bundle up, fetal style.
Yeah, I get it.
You can do this all in one, by the way. You don't have to have your CSS file.
In the link here?
Yeah.
I want this that properties on
Yo,
Oh,
what?
actually, no, I think I've
Never seen
it.
this.
Yeah.
What is
I
IEQ?
don't like, what is
It's
it?
crazy.
IEQ?
You gotta put a colon after it.
The Ruby line, like if you hover over the
Adding top, yeah.
sidebar,
So I do.
it'll show you that code.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy, bro. Like, just the fun stuff people were doing.
Yep. Well, that's what happens too once you have like a core platform that works well, and you don't just then give up on it. Then you can sit there and come up with all the really cool stuff to put on top of it.
Do class.
All right, let's see.
Here?
Yeah, capital
I
N.
want to do that someday. That'd be cool. Build
Yeah, I thought about that. It's just
a silly nonsense.
well, it's like
Everything is silly nonsense.
like it could be cool to do that. It's just that there's so many other people that are building really cool stuff. It's hard to justify like doing something like that and doing it as well as other people are already doing it.
Yeah.
That's a whole like career path. If you go work for Ionic or something and you see how that's done and done well, and then you start to see, oh, how can I improve on that? Then that would make sense to go build a framework or build a language. But
Yeah, I wouldn't even use it. I'd just be like, I made one.
yeah, well, exactly. But like, what do you do with that?
Never. No, I would not support it.
Yeah.
Continue it, no.
Yeah. I mean, you'll figure out how to create a framework just over time. It'll become obvious to you what they're doing. But then,
Yeah, just even a start for like what? Like I feel like it's such a process to support building a process.
yeah. I mean, all that Stencil is a bunch of, well, it's a bunch of TypeScript code. So they're not even going any more fundamental than that. The whole thing's written in TypeScript, and then you just get to use the code that they've written in TypeScript. So there's nothing particularly fancy. Like they're not going like, you know, you're not.
I think they're doing something crazy.
Yeah, they're just writing code and making functions available to you. It's the same thing with Rails. It's all Ruby. Like there's nothing that's more, there's nothing closer to machine level than what you're writing in. It's just going through and seeing like, oh, they made a whole bunch of helper functions to make your life a lot easier. But that's all they're really doing. And once you understand that, it's like, oh, I could build a framework. Yeah, I could make a bunch of helper functions. And that might be interesting to do, but it also might be like, well, whatever. I can just make my own helper functions for a framework that already exists, and I'm starting from something that's better than nothing. So
I just want all the knowledge like pushed to my repo, mental repo.
Matrix style, just upload.
I heard, bro. Someone's telling me, my friend, he was telling me about Elon Musk and his crazy ideas and what he has going on with this chip that they're gonna put in the brain.
Oh yeah, he is talking about that. All right, so you guys all have access to all the Stencil projects. So we're just gonna go look at route param service. I have all of them downloaded on my computer, but you guys can clone them and run them just like anything else, and they should just work. So like if you git clone any of those projects and do npm install, npm start, it's gonna run, and then you should be able to actually like look at the code and play around and see like how did they create cards, forms, modals, whatever, right? And if you want to just explore sort of what we've done, you can always go to app.stage.fullmeasure.io and create an account and just start to play around with stuff. If you create an account and you want to look at more stuff than what you can see, just Slack me after you've created the account, and I'll go in and give you all the permissions so you can do all the things. It's just Stage, it's not production, so you can't break anything, you're not getting access to things you're not allowed to do, so don't worry about it. And it's the same thing when you run it locally. If you run it locally, you're hitting a Stage server, so you don't need to worry about that. You don't need to worry about any of the back end, it just works. You just for front end, taking a look at things and how things work. All right, so if we go look at one of those projects, though, and they all pretty much have this, so we can look at what's like settings is a relatively simple one. There's this services thing, and inside of there's a route service. Route service gets used all over the place. If you search inside a source for route service or inside a component for route service, womp womp. I'm not, because the file mask is wrong. There we go. You can see all the time we're just saying this dot route service dot params, right? And so if I go start up, if I go into settings, you guys would do npm install. I'll do it too, but I've already got it. And then npm start, just like you do with all your other projects. Boom, boom, boom. We got auto logged in as a guest and all kinds of cool stuff. If you want to log in as a real person, you can sign out and then sign in with the account that you create. So you can have permissions, but a lot of the stuff you don't need them. But if we go to like organizations, so here's a list of all of our organizations. You can see like this organization's at the top. Click on that one. I go into the form for that organization. I'm pulling a bunch of stuff here. See, like I've got the ID for this organization, and I've got the ID for the original organization that I came in here from. Okay, and I'm passing that information in, but these are query parameters. So I don't know how familiar you guys with query parameters, but it literally just means that in the URL, at the end of the URL, there's a question mark, and then after that, there's, instead of doing a hash like we would do in Rails or in JavaScript, you do ID equals, so ID is your parameter name, and then they're separated not by commas, but by ampersands. Okay, so and organization ID. Because it's got this very consistent formatting and how it's done, we can parse that into a JavaScript object, and that's all that the route service params does. So if I go to, admin organizations form, and we try to keep things in a way that you can kind of figure out where they go, admin organizations form. What do you know about that? There's a thing there, right? And that's just because we're trying to keep the route consistent with our organizational structure. It doesn't have to be that way, but obviously when you guys come on and you start developing against our code, it's gonna be a whole lot easier to figure out where should I be looking for this thing if that's how you get there, right? So then we go look inside of there. There's that form class. Here we are with the params. We're gonna get the params, route service.params. That's all you have to do. I'll put a debugger in.
Now, my question is, when you're doing your routes though, like, yes, you have this service, but you have to like build your URLs now. I mean, I know it's just an ID, you got organization ID, but like when you go to, I guess in our case, the Ion routes, we need to create our URL such that it's inclusive of all these, like this format.
No.
Okay.
So when you create your route, we use a different routing structure, but we did it with Ion Route for months. You create the route as the base route. So you'd have a route that's called admin organization form, and that's going to point to this component. Adding the question mark does nothing from the Ion Route perspective. So it'll still take you here to this component,
Okay.
and then you just pull it off. So you don't have to put all the nonsense in there. It just works. That's my point. You don't have to put slash and then each
That's why I
parameter
was
name.
scared.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.
So you guys do this instead of putting properties in the components, I guess? You pass the properties through the URL, sort of?
This is a little different because the properties in the component, you have to keep nesting the children if you do it that way. This is, we're moving between components.
Oh.
Right? So like I'm going to a different page.
Okay.
So in that case, I don't have properties pass. We still pass properties down when we have children component of parent component.
Okay.
But the page, like the landing page for organizations, admin organizations form is very different, right, from the like admin cards,
users.
yeah, or admin users or something like that. And so that page is the top level component. It may pass properties down into its children, but anyway, it needs to be able to get a top level bit of information, which is the parameters here. The reason for the parameters here, it's largely, and we talked about this before a little bit, it's about state management. So if I take this URL and I send it to Ben and Ben clicks on it, he's going to see the exact same information that I see. If you remove the ID and the organization ID, it doesn't know what to show.
Right.
It's not going to know that it should be showing Alliant and that I got here from Full Measure, okay? Because it won't have the ID. So you would get there and it would just blow up and say, I don't know what you're doing, right? And so there's a way of persisting state so that every time anyone goes to this particular URL, they see the same information. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So everybody, do we get that? Do we understand that? Like if I don't have the ID, then my code doesn't know which organization I'm trying to look at. So it's going to just blow up. Okay, it's not going to work. So if I'm passing this around to friends of mine as a link and they need to get there, it needs to have the information about what should be on that page. And it doesn't have to be much information because the ID tells me, oh, I need to go fetch the organization from the server and that'll give me all the information actually.
But what's the advantage of using this as opposed to like, if you're using like an ION router and you just do like : property name?
Yeah. So there's a couple things. One is you have to name those parameters explicitly in ION params. So if you want to pass multiple parameters, which you shouldn't be passing too many, but there are frequent cases where we're passing 2 to 4 parameters, then you have to explicitly name / the name of the thing /
go back and do that every time.
Yep.
And change them.
Yep. And this way you don't. And if you change the code so that you want a different parameter name or you're passing a different set of parameters, you would have to go back to ION router and update it to reference that. And in this case, you don't. It just works. You just get whatever the parameters are.
Yeah.
It's also the case that sometimes you'll pass a parameter and other times you won't. And you can do that in ION router because you'll do / or something and to pass in a null thing. But in this case, it'll take care of itself with just not putting a whatever that parameter was. So like maybe user ID comes in here sometimes and not others, and then your code checks to see if there's a user ID param or not. Instead, it just doesn't create a weird formed URL that's going to be like /. Instead, we just don't add the end. Route service params also, route service rather, will go the other direction as well. That's not a good example of it, but it'll turn it into a query string. So it'll take your parameters and turn it into a query string. So what's probably, yeah. So if you took the one from the engagement stencil project, for example, we need to move all these because we're just copying and pasting services across a bunch of modules and we just haven't done it yet. So they're all slightly different, but they more or less do the same thing. If you get this route service, then you can call route service.queryString and pass in a JavaScript object, and it'll turn it into the ampersand separated query string that you can then append onto the end of.
Who adds the question mark?
You do,
us?
yeah.
Okay.
So it doesn't put the question mark on there. You have to put the question mark and then concatenate this in. Okay. Does that make sense?
Like is route service just kind of instead of doing like window.location.href and
Well, it does.
the ID on the back?
It does that. So in our case, we use hash. So you do have to make sure that in your ION router, there's a parameter called use hash. You want to make sure that that's set equal to true, because that's how this works. But that's all it's doing, Ben, is we just made a service so that we can shorten that code so we don't have to repeat it over and over again. But it's just saying get the location hash, split on the question mark, take the first thing that you get back there, and replace hashtag / with nothing, and that's going to give us our path, for example. Or up here it says split on the question mark and take everything after the question mark, so the second option on that string. If search is undefined, then return blank. So if we don't have anything after that, then return an empty object. There's no parameters. Otherwise, parse, and then this craziness does the translation from the name variable equals value to the object.
So if we're just trying to pass IDs, we should use path.
Nope. You would still. So the way that we would do that is you put at the end $ID equals the ID. If you literally just care about putting the ID, you can still use the ion router / ID. But so when you come to work in our stuff, you'll use this. So it's probably worth getting familiar with that concept.
Because I'm just thinking, like, for the stuff we're working on now, like, would we ever pass anything other than?
Oh yeah. So as soon as you go to the assignments page, so on the course stuff, you just have the ID because you only want to manage that particular course for the form. But when you go to the assignments page, that's off of the courses. You wanna pass in the course ID. So course equals ID. I mean, there's very few things other than IDs, foreign keys or primary keys that we're passing in to the parameters. But the name of them, what they actually are, etc., that does change.
Okay.
And so that's where you start seeing the advantage of this.
Because right now, like, I just started doing the assignment one, and like I'm just passing the ID through like the window.location.href and grabbing the ID.
Yep. Which is what this does. It just does it prettier and more convention oriented. Okay. So like query parameters are a thing. We didn't make this up. Query parameters are a thing that's used by the entire internet. You guys have seen the question mark a billion times, right? And so all we're doing is taking that predefined convention and making a service that makes it easy to pull that stuff into a JSON object. That's all of this is. It's just an easy way to convert what comes after the question mark into a JavaScript object. That's all it is.
So in terms of the root, looking at your root file, that has all your routes.
Yeah.
So everything is just gonna have just the base. So in this case, on this page we're on right now, at least in the locals, it'd be admin organizations form.
Yeah, it would just be admin organization form. And then the component would be whatever the component is. And then you don't have to worry about what parameters get passed. You pass in whatever parameters you want, and then in the component will load, you just get the parameters. That's what we're doing here.
So say, at this point then, we should be able to just use the hash, set that to true, take out all of our little colon parameters in our route, and then go back and then add
just use the route service parameters. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And you can put it in whatever we put it inside as source services. We create a folder called services, and we just always put it there. And then you just import it wherever you use it, which will auto happen anyway when you go to use it. But you just import route service, and then you can just say route service.params. It's a static method, so you don't have to say new route service constructor. You just say route service.params because it's static, which we talked a little bit about before. A lot about it. Yeah. So it's just a helper. That's all this is, right? It's just a helper method to make this type of thing easier. You don't have to use it.
A lot better though.
It should make your life simpler. The other reason to potentially do it is this is what you'll do when you become a junior dev. So getting familiar with it now is valuable. Okay. Any other questions about that? All right. So same thing though, like you can look through the code and find all kinds of stuff that we do and like how we do it and toggles and buttons and all kinds of stuff. And if you have questions about any of that, just let me know. The other thing that I think you guys aren't using all that much is the HTTP service thing. But you'll see like how this actually gets used if you open it up and start playing around with some of the apps that we have.
What's the overview of what this does?
It's your CRUD.
It's your CRUD fetch. So what this does is it has a bunch of helper functions: query, find by, upsert, put, delete, post, find, get request. Which you don't actually generally use get request. A lot of the other things here use it, but then you can do like so.
Yeah, definitely. If we're using the one route service, definitely should just use this too.
Yeah, I mean, I would
These conform
suggest you start. So like here, I don't have to worry about all the fetch code and what that looks like and how to move things from JSON. I just say my response is await organization feature HTTP service query and what the parameters are I need to pass up. And it'll give me back all the organizations that all the organization features that have an organization ID of the parameters organization ID. And then I can use it. So it's just simple. It's just simplifying. It's just a helper. It does the same thing you guys are doing. It's not doing anything fancy or magical in any way whatsoever. It's just simpler. If you look at this one, to set it up, all you do is extend from CRUD HTTP service and you rename the route. That's it.
Okay. So renaming our route would just be like logos, whatever.
It'd probably just be something like whatever the controller name is.
Okay.
Ours has two because we have microservices in app stage and app production, so it's microservice and then controller name. But you guys locally, you just have controller name. So that's it. There is if you go to this, there's probably some. I don't know. It might actually just work. There might be a little refactoring because we do authorization stuff, which you guys don't do. But it should be relatively minimal to pull that stuff out. And it probably doesn't even matter because it probably just sends up information that you don't care about. All right. Cool. So let's go around. Let's look at syllabi. Let's see where everybody is with that. And then let's get rolling towards Monday where we're going to start working as a team.
So starting back, hitting the goal of the courses, was able to get my courses done. Here they are rendered here. I got some records that I made in the database. You can see what's fetched back from the database. So I got a card for everyone. We can go into one of these cards, maybe another. So then all that information will come up. I also got the edit working. We can edit that, maybe some more, and we can save those changes, and we get those things back. And that's it for my courses. I'm on now to the syllabus. So then clicking the syllabus icon from here, not there, but yeah.
Sweet.
What I got going. Yeah. I mean,
No,
and
good.
it still works. So I can add a course again.
Yep.
Maybe 0. Add that. Let's see that. Come down. We got that. We'll take one there.
Cool.
All right.
Cool. Who's next?
I guess I could go. I mean,
Logan, do you want to actually show the visit day stuff you're working on where that is?
oh, yeah, I could show you guys that.
Why don't, just because we might spend a little more time on that, why don't we let Ben and Drithy go first, and then...
I'm actually working on like a little thing for it right now, so if I can finish it really quick.
Yep.
Show you guys that.
Go for it.
Oh, sorry. I thought I would let you override it.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. I hate those teasers, bro. A couple more seconds.
Dude, we got custom screensavers here. That's awesome.
Bro. I mean,
You're like,
it's
I want the
cool.
boat.
Yeah. Pirates of the Airbnb.
You just like go in the Google Home app and add all the.
Oh man, poor SB. So if you want fake email addresses, just because like in our case it's not actually going anywhere, whatever. But there, as you get into real auth, it will send an email to a real person. A couple of things that you can use. One is you can always put your email address and then a plus whatever, 12ABC whatever before the @ symbol, and it'll always go to your email address.
What?
So it's different. It's a unique email, but if you put plus and then any string after the plus before the @ sign, it will always go to your email address, but it's a unique email address. So when you're developing, that's a very useful thing to have. The
They
second,
make that for us.
I don't know, Google maybe, yeah. But everybody knows that.
What do you put the plus here?
Yeah, plus something.
3.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of times you do +1 and then +2 and then +3 and then +4, and then you're like, oh crap, I don't remember what number I was. +999
Yeah.
plus, and then but then you can put like plus, 71284, like whatever. It doesn't matter. Or like the word something, like you can put anything after it, but it goes before the plus, after the after the plus, before the @ sign. The other thing that you can do is example.com is not a real domain name. It's like held open for the purpose of creating fake email addresses. So you can always do example.com.
Okay.
Yep.
Or just put some random at your .com, just like
Well, you don't know. Well,
fff.com.
but there might be an fff.com. You don't know. So phone numbers are very similar. So everybody thinks 555-555-5555 is a fake phone number. Technically, it could be a real phone number. The protected phone numbers are 555-555-0101 through 555-555-0109.
Really?
Yeah.
0101 through 0109.
Yeah.
So those are the only ones that aren't real?
Those are the only phone numbers that the whatever the organization, the FAA, FDA, the FAA,
PC,
F-
FC, I don't know.
FCC,
committee.
whatever. The people who make the determination on what phone numbers are good and not, those are the only ones that are technically will never ever be given out. Most likely they've taken 555-555-555-555 off because
Everybody thinks.
yeah.
I always thought 555, the area code, that was just like,
Yeah.
doesn't exist.
So it probably doesn't, but they have not said that they won't ever use it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot they talking about dummy numbers.
So anyways, we can create a profile and edit the profile. So right now, Sam does not have any courses if the big guy comes up. Save it.
Well, that's a dumb course.
It's a dumb course. Let's edit it up.
Big flex.
There you go.
And then you can also
delete button.
delete that bad boy. And if you delete it,
Just snapped.
it goes back to this page.
Nice. It's gone.
Yeah.
Sweet. Beautiful.
But yeah, so
Great.
haven't done the assignments yet. Hold on. I do have the page for the syllabus. I just
Yeah, you swapped out the button.
yeah.
I think that transitional stuff gets fixed in the newest version of Ionic
Oh, really?
if you update,
But yeah.
nice. Sweet. Alright, Trithy, you're up. Too short. Oh, you got the yeah.
No, the last one was cool.
Just can't please you, man.
Your login page.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Your name is Drithy at gmail.com. I mean,
No,
like
it's actually
email?
Drithy.iyer,
Oh, okay.
but it doesn't work anymore. And then to that, let's do this page. So
That's true. You have a unique enough name. If you got in it early enough, you probably could have actually gotten.
My GW email is Druthi@GW.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
So I'm like the only Druthi in that
Yeah.
school. So I got this, and I think it connects to the back end, but I'm not able to figure out how to like map it to the course card.
Okay.
However, I do have like. So I have
Oh, okay.
that created,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then I have like an actual course card created. I
Okay.
just need to figure out how to like map it. Or like create a new course card that goes into course list.
Yep.
Not like pops up here. And then that's a central list.
Okay. Cool. No, it's good. All right. Good. So we're all close enough. So now Monday. So keep working on that, Druthi. Get help to try and finish it out today, especially, and then Monday we'll come together and we'll probably give you those things to do again. And then the expectation is for the rest of the team to make sure that you get it done. You guys got that? So it's been individual work, which is cool, but we're about to get into teamwork, and I don't give a crap what each one of you completes. We got to get it all done, okay? And there's two ways to do that. There's somebody, superstar, can just go get it all done. Don't do that either. And the reason that actually might fly sometimes in like when we actually start working, just like when you become junior devs, just because we need to get something done, and so we'll have you do that. Right now is all about learning on every side, and so if you know how to do it and the person assigned to do it doesn't know how to do it, you got to help them, because you're going to learn a whole lot more when you get in there and you're like, oh, you got this question and I did this already, but I did it slightly differently than what you're doing, and I don't know why what you're doing isn't working. When you get into that problem, you're going to start to understand what's really going on. You're going to get a much better insight into how to write the code to get the same thing to happen, approaching from different perspectives.
Me and Ben kind of been going through that. Like we've been trying to help each other.
Yeah.
But we like take like little, just little differences in design decisions.
Yeah.
Of like trying to do the same thing like.
Yeah.
Possible.
No, that's right. Yeah. No, it's huge. You learn a ton that way. So just make sure you guys are helping each other out. It's ultimately the responsibility of the person who's assigned the work to get it done, but sit with them until they get it done. Good way to do that is if you're struggling with something, sit there for 30 minutes, try and get past it. If you can't, call somebody over. Get them to help you get past. Just don't go all the way to, and now it works in a persistent in the database and it shows back up on the screen. Just get past the one specific thing that you're trying to do. So like I write it on the form and I click save and I can see it go into the back end through the network tab, but it's not showing up in my database. Get them to help you get it into the database, and then let them back off. Let them go back to their work. Then you try and figure out, okay, I'm getting into the database now. Why isn't it showing up on my screen? Let me try and get that to come down. Work on that for 30 minutes. If you can't get that in 30 minutes, call them back over and do it again. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like one piece. Just get past that bug and let them help you do that. Struggle with it for another 30 minutes and then bring them back over. Okay. Does that make sense? And 30 minutes is the limit. I know you guys are going to want to push longer than that, and if there's nobody around, that can be good. Like there are times when putting 2 hours, 3 hours in to something that you're like, oh, what is happening, and getting past it on your own, there's value in that. But when you're here with people, only take 30 minutes because you're going to get a whole lot more out of a whole bunch of little 30-minute struggles and then finding the solution than you are in those lots of 3 hours of not getting anywhere. Because in that 3 hours, you're probably just going down rabbit holes, and if you're not moving on to the next thing, you're not learning the other 4, 5 other new things that you could have learned in that amount of time. Okay, and I need you guys to learn quick, because pretty soon we're going to start making offers and bringing you guys on to be actual developers, and you guys know Brennan and Nathaniel are leaving. That's a big move up for you guys to potentially be able to take over. We're going to have somebody come in, Min. He's going to be a senior dev, but the expectation is that he's going to be here for 9 months. His sole responsibility, his primary responsibility is to help train you guys up. His secondary responsibility is when I can't do something and it needs to get done, he can go and make sure that it gets taken care of. Okay? But he's only here for 9 months because the expectation is you guys are going to start to move up. Now, that's really good, because what that means is you're going to start to get paid more faster, you're going to get more responsibility faster, you're going to learn a lot more faster. But it also means you got to put the work in now. You got 9 months to be able to get into a position where I feel like you can be a senior depth. Now, if you don't make it, you don't make it. That's whatever. What it probably means is you stick back in that junior dev role. But I guarantee some people from this cohort and the previous one and the next one in the summer, they're going to start to step up, and you're going to feel like you're getting left back. So I just don't want you to. I'm just putting the expectations out there and communicating real clearly. Okay, everybody get it? All right, cool. All right. So off the computer science stuff, we're gonna move into the Everest case. So everybody's read that. We're good. All right. So we're gonna just go through. That together, talk about some team dynamics, some of the issues that they ran into, some of the things that you guys are likely going to run into as you move forward on this project over the next few weeks. So hopefully it brings some insight into that and resolve some conflict faster. All right. Has anybody know about this Everest?
Yeah, I saw the movie.
Oh, you saw the movie? Okay, yep. Yeah, there was a big book, and then they made a movie about it relatively recently. So it's come back into popular domain. You guys were probably mostly like being born when this thing actually happened. This makes me feel real old. All right, so this is sort of what it looked like map-wise, what they were trying to experience. Right, so they're starting at the base camp. They got to get all the way up to the summit. They have multiple camping opportunities on their way up. So just as a little, yeah, I just told you why that's true. So. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about what's going on. So what are the leaders like that we're reading about in the Everest case?
They kind of had like a variety of personalities. Like some of them were like, there was the one dude, I can't remember his name, who was like much more confident in himself than his, strategy and stuff like that than the other ones. And there was some that were like less so, and kind of just like letting the other ones lead because they didn't feel confident in their strategy. So it's kind of like a range of personalities.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like they're maybe a little too hell-bent on like completing this mission so they could, make more money and get more press and advertising and all that. Maybe a little too driven.
Yep. There's some interesting research that a buddy of mine did at the University of Arizona. So we talked a little bit about goal setting theory, and that's like a really good motivational concept, and it works really well. He looked at some of the like bad outcomes, bad negative effects of goal setting theory. One of the things that you find is when you set goals, you do get people to achieve at a higher level, but people are also more likely to engage in negative behaviors to get there. So they're more likely to lie or cheat or steal or whatever, and that seems to be related to the stress of actually achieving the goal. Like as you become more stressed out, you are more likely to engage in these less moral behaviors, and that causes other problems along the way. So like we have people's lives that are at stake here, right? But the like, I have this goal and we're going to do it and we have to do it. They're really hell-bent on getting up there. That's going to start to lead them to become more stressed out about actually making it. And as a result, they're going to take more risks than they probably should be with people's lives. What about the clients? What are they like?
According to the leaders or to the clients themselves?
Either, both.
Some of the leaders thought they were not ready.
Yeah.
There was some cohort or whatever.
And what are the clients' perspectives?
It's kind of like a wide range. There's like a couple of guys that had like gotten pretty close to reaching last time, and they're like, I'm gonna get up there even if I die, kind of thing. And one guy's like, yeah, I'm just going to base camp. I'm not going up.
Yep. Were they all? What do you guys think about their preparedness? Are they ready to go?
I mean, a lot of the one of the leaders was like, these guys are not prepared.
Yeah.
I'd say like.
I mean, they had like the practice run and stuff, and it wasn't like the best. So it's like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. All right, so. What contributed to the tragedy? What were some examples of bad decisions that happened?
Probably the worst one was like I think it was either Rob Hall or Scott Fisher. They're like, okay, we have this set time of maybe 2 or maybe 1:30. We don't really know. And then literally at like 4 o'clock, he was still up there.
Yeah.
It didn't turn around in time, so
Yeah.
that was a bad one.
And then the oxygen.
The
They didn't
oxygen.
have enough of it.
Yeah, they didn't bring enough oxygen.
Yeah. No, and then like one group didn't have like good radios.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, why don't you guys have good radios?
Yeah.
Um,
So what are some of the things, like, I mean, that type of stuff is going to happen all the time because, people forget or they have personalities where they're just not paying attention or whatever. What could have been done to try to improve their opportunity for success?
I think they were too overconfident,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
the leaders.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were like, "Oh, we don't need enough oxygen. We're fine."
They need like
Probably good.
hard like restrictions and rules, like like a real policy in terms of things like because you may feel okay, right? Like as you were saying, like I don't need oxygen, but as a precaution, like, let's do that or something.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like that needs to be a serious base case.
Mm-hmm. So that's so that's one way, and that's how a lot of organizations deal with this type of risk. Is you just put in hard rules, like you have to
Yeah.
have this much oxygen when you go up. I don't care if it's harder or it's a big pain in the butt, or if you're going to lose money as a result of having that much oxygen. You got to have this much oxygen, right? So that's one way of dealing with it. Generally, those types of rules come into play. Well, when do you think those types of rules are more common in like a startup type environment or in like a large bureaucratic organization?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because startup, you gotta be adaptive. Like I'm saying, we might have to not abide by that policy in this specific situation.
Or
You
you're
gotta
still
figure
trying
out
to
what
figure-
works.
Yeah, you're still trying to figure out.
Yep.
What is needed, what is not needed.
Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely those things are part of it. There's another reason. So yes, those are great reasons why startups are less likely to have hard and fast rules because we haven't figured it out yet. We don't know exactly what it's going to be, so we don't know what. A lot of times, you don't know how much oxygen you need. You can't have a hard and fast rule until you know how much you actually need to make it up there, and you have to be adaptive enough. So if you're like, man, if we do that much oxygen, we're going to lose money. And we can't make payroll if we lose that money. And if we can't make payroll, we die as a company. Well, then we're probably going to try without the oxygen because the other option is death, right? Now, like, this is an extreme. This is a different example. Like, there are other ways startups can deal with that type of thing. If it was actually this type of moral behavior, you just go get more funding, and so you can afford the oxygen, and then you figure it out from there. But what's another reason why large bureaucratic organizations probably have more hard and fast rules?
Is it would you say like because they're so large, like the amount of risk kind of like increases proportionally with the size and the complexity of everything. So
it's definitely risk management that they're trying to do, and there certainly is like an increased emphasis on reducing risk as you get into larger organizations. Because they have lawyers who are emphasizing like you're going to get sued if you don't do this. So that's definitely part of it.
Like in terms of like a company managed like a bureaucracy like it's the whole idea of it is one ruling another. Like you know what I'm saying? Like
Why is that? That's what I'm trying to get at. You're right.
Why is
Because of their shareholders?
Because they're shareholders, they're trying to prove value, sure.
why does a bureaucracy work like
So
that?
so let's start with what's the major difference that we're emphasizing right now between a startup and a large bureaucratic organization?
The levels.
Levels and slash what allows for levels. If you have a startup with 5 people, how many levels can you have?
maybe like
Yeah, it's horizontal.
Oh.
Maybe 2, most 5. The most you could have is 5. Large bureaucratic organization, you got hundreds of employees. How many levels can you have?
A lot.
A lot. So the levels are related to
Resources.
the number of people that you have in the organization. So what happens as you move from a startup to a large bureaucratic organization that requires more hard and fast written down policies and rules?
Management. You got people managing people.
You got people managing people. Yeah. So what is why?
Complexity.
Its complexity is a big part of it.
Money.
Yeah.
Everything.
All right. We're sitting right here, and like you guys are about to be your own dev team, right? So I can sit here with all 4 of you, and I can say, you're gonna bring 5 things of oxygen. And I just told all of you, we're done. We're moving on.
Yeah.
And because I know you and I'll watch what happens, you go up there and you bring 4 things of oxygen and your people die. When you come back down, what's going to happen? You're fired. You're out. We're moving on, right?
Yeah.
But I can do that because I told you. I know I told you. You know I told you. You all heard it. Everybody's on the same page. We're communicating in a very clear and effective and straightforward manner in a way that is very relational and allows for us to have these conversations. Now let's move to a bureaucracy where, like, let's say you're your own subdivision in an organization and I'm the CEO. And now I'm trying to communicate this to you and all the other subdivisions that exist out there. How's that going to work?
It's like a game of telephone.
Yeah. I'm not going to go talk to you and to every other person in the organization.
Yeah.
Might do, like now with technology, maybe you do some large broadcast, but even that, I don't know who actually saw it. It's very difficult to like force people to watch something. Even if you say it's mandatory and put it in an email, there's lots of people who are going to skip right past it. I don't know if they actually saw it. And then what happens in the other direction? You guys fail, you're a small subsidiary in the organization, and somebody dies on your watch. How do I find out about it?
You may not.
I might not. I might not. Like, seriously, there's times when that information doesn't make it all the way back up for a variety of reasons, including just poor communication or practices in communication, or like the way that the line is open or closed, or there's somebody who's trying to protect because they know as soon as the CEO finds out that they didn't bring 5 and they only brought 4 and somebody died, they're going to change the rules and regulations, and they're going to have to spend a lot more money to buy that 5th thing of oxygen, even though it's only 1 out of 100 where you lose somebody, and so it's worth it to keep going. It's crazy, but like that happens. That's real stuff in real life, right? It's the communication that becomes broken down because there's so many layers to it. It's the telephone game that happens. So to reduce the possibility for people to make decisions on their own, you create written policies and you enforce written policies so that anybody now who comes across and does an audit and says, oh, you lost somebody and you only brought 4 things on the trip, we now know there's a policy that says you're not allowed to do that. It's right here. It says in section 508963 CBA, right? And that says that when you do that, you're fired. And you do, so the policy creates the enforcement of regulations that we can do informally in a much smaller organization. Does that make sense? All right. So have you guys seen this before? Forming, storming, norming, performing, and soaring. This is Tuckman's model of team development. It's pretty commonly used. It does a pretty good job of talking about how teams develop. There's some issues in that a lot of the times there's a break between norming and performing. It's called the punctuated equilibrium model, where like these things happen not so linearly, but much more like back and forth to one another. You might even start at norming and then go to forming and then go to storming and then go to forming and then go to norming and then go to forming, right? But performing and soaring generally also happen together. So you might perform and then you soar, and then maybe you just go back to the performing phase and then maybe you soar again. Maybe you, but the point here is even in those cases you can actually fall back. So you might be doing performing and soaring, and then like you have a new challenge you're trying to accomplish, and you fall back down to forming or soaring, etc. So this is all put out on a very linear plane, but the reality is they're much more back and forth than what it's talking about. Still useful though to talk about these different stages. They do generally tend to lead in this direction. So as you form and storm and norm, you start to perform at a higher level, and then once you start performing, it's kind of like the RubyMine IDE. Performing is kind of like I have the base core technology that I need to be able to be successful, and now I'm going to start to do the really cool stuff. And the really cool stuff is soaring. So we can talk a little bit about full measure as it's walked through these things, which will give you guys a little bit of history, and then we'll talk about how it happened in Everest. So forming, develop trust, identify team goals, develop shared expectations. So when we first started, right, there was it was Greg and Bob largely, and they were trying to figure out like what are we going to do next? What's our next venture going to be? We just did Presidium. It's pretty cool. Let's try to figure out where we're going to go from here. We said, hey, let's try to communicate better to students. We learned a whole bunch of stuff in this call center. Let's see if we can do something better. So they already trusted each other. They had that stuff going on. That's great. They started to identify some goals, but they hadn't quite figured it all out. They start to bring on a larger team. So they bring on Chris, the CTO at the time, and Chuck, the head of sales, and Bamford to do sales stuff. And then they start to build up a team of developers and of school resources and those people. And as we all start to come together, and the initial, like, this is where we should go, doesn't just work, right? The initial plan for what's going to happen doesn't just work. We started to go down this storming path where there were like 5 or 6 different perspectives on where the organization should go and what was going to provide value and how we were going to make it and what was going to be good. So we're all hashing this stuff out, and this takes, like, in the case of Full Measure, several years of us like going back and forth. And now there were times, and this is where you keep going through these cycles, right? So we're storming and we're norming, and we try to perform, and we try this one, and we try that one, and we try this one. Right? These are pivots that are happening. But we're trying to, at the same time, come up with like what's the best way to go forward. And what keeps happening is all these people have different opinions on it. We force those opinions together. At some point, people start making decisions to go down one path or another, being informed by the other ideas. And we start to like build the personal education plan, which was this massive enterprise solution on mobile. We're going to show people careers and their funding and the programs. We're going to talk about return on education and why you should or should not pursue a particular program of interest at a particular school. We started to go down paths of like, what if we just become a really good call center? What's that going to look like? Can we like just take information about, and that was their initial path, we just take information about the student, present it to people in sort of an Uber model where they're just getting data about the student and better respond to their questions. What if we go down this path of like sometimes complete nonsense, like mobile, what do you call it? Mobile student information system. And just say we're the enterprise mobile interaction for your school. Nobody even knew what that meant, but it was a thing that we tried to sell to see what would happen. And then we tried a whole bunch of things during a period where it was like, well, maybe we just create like custom mobile apps for the school. Maybe we just try to do communications for the school. Maybe we try to be a funding partner. Maybe we can get this USA Funds to work with us, and we are really about bringing money into the school. We're trying all this stuff, and like we went down these various paths and tried all these things. Maybe we need to do messaging, maybe we need to do calendaring, we tried all this stuff. So we'd storm, everybody would like have their ideas and opinions. These are some of the things that came out of the storming. So there's this norming piece that's happening. We have like 6 different paths that we norm together on. And then we go and perform. And during the performing piece, it's really like, okay, the thing exists now as a product. We're trying to sell it. Can we sell the thing? And what we see for most of those is no, we can't. Or if we do, it costs too much. Or if we do, it's too hard to implement. Or the turnover isn't fast enough in terms of the sales coming in. Or whatever the thing is that causes it not to be successful. So things then barely make it into performing in many cases. You're doing this norming piece. You're starting to move down a particular direction, but then it doesn't actually perform. So you fall back, fails out. You go back to the storming, the norming, the performing. Eventually, we get something that works. It's communication strategy stuff. We can see it's actually having an impact on students. We can see it's a relatively simple thing to talk to organizations about. We can see that we can limit it to a department, so we don't have to sell it to the entire university, which makes sales cycles much smaller. And we can see a path where we might be able to do some really cool things with communications, where we can take communication with students to the next level beyond just sending out a text message, certainly beyond just sending, calling them or sending them an email, but even beyond sending them a text message, where now we can start to have interactions. So once you receive that message, that text message, they can message back in to advisors, and we can bring them into an experience that's more than just the message. So now they have tasks to show them what else is going on in their life. We can bring them to events to do better marketing so that they are moving in the right direction. And so we start to see the performing piece of, hey, we can sell communication strategies to schools, and we start to think about, now how can we make that a soaring strategy? And where that eventually starts leading us towards is where we're just now starting to build, which is this concept of having a library or a store of content strategies that people can just pull in, and they're beautiful, and you can send them out to the student, and we can sell them for very small dollar amounts. All right. So, and you, so a lot of times when you do the team development stuff, and like when I did this and studied it, it's very much within like a 30-minute to 2-hour context. Even in the case studies, even with this one, Mount Everest, we're talking about a study that's being done over a couple of weeks, not over several years. But the reality of how organizations work is it's a much harder struggle to get there than what's shown. I mean, even right now, we think we are on the precipice of soaring. I can tell you there have been so many times, like I can think of 3 specific times where I was like, if we don't start to do something valuable in the next 3 months, I'm gone. This place isn't going to make it. And then we would do just enough to keep me here. But none of those ended up like being super successful. I think we were just on, and we'll see what happens when they come back from NACAC and what happens. I've seen excitement when they come back from conferences before, but my guess is when they come back this time, it's not just going to be excitement, it's going to be sales. And when you start to see the numbers showing up inside of general, then you're going to start to see, oh yeah, that we're starting to soar. That's going to be awesome. So this is a good time for you guys to become a part of this place. But that's where we are. It's taken a real long time to get here, and it is very difficult, and you keep going back to this norming and storming piece until you start to find something that works. And honestly, even after we find something that works, we're going to want to make more money off of it probably, so we're going to drop back into the storming norming, probably with things that we've somewhat developed before, and now we have more resources to be able to go after, but we're going to have to go back through that process of try it out, doesn't work, try it out, doesn't work, try it out, doesn't work, try it out. Maybe try it a little longer, doesn't work. Right? Like that's just how this thing works. Now, in terms of the team dynamics and what that looks like, if you're in a good environment where conflict is about everybody's on the same page in terms of the vision. So the vision here has always been make money, save babies. And what I mean by that is it's about finding the highest value for full measure as a company. How do we bring the most money dollars in the door while doing something to help kids get into and through college, right? And so we put those 2 things as like the top mission priorities, and they always have been. And so all the stuff that's happening in the storming norming, it's always about that. And personal stuff falls into it, and like you've seen like me get aggravated and frustrated with people, but the end goal is always to get past that personal stuff and to get the company moving in the right direction, to get the value, to make money, to save babies. Okay, so as long as that's the case, and the conflict is about it's called task conflict as opposed to interpersonal conflict, it's all good. That stuff is going to be used by everyone on the team to shift their perspective a little bit so that they can move everyone in the same direction and we can get on the same page. If it becomes about the interpersonal stuff, the storming thing might be the end. If there's true value contradictions, like one group, like if there was one group that really wanted to make money no matter what the consequence was to students, or one group that said, I only want to have a high impact on the students, I don't care what the cost is or if we can make any money off of it. If that was the perspective, then you probably would have had 2 groups that split and went off in their own direction, because there's no way that they're going to get back together. The values are held too strongly, and there's no way for you to be able to work together. Okay? Or if there's just somebody who thinks that we should do something completely different. We've had that happen. That's why the turnover has happened to an extent, both in terms of people who have been let go and in people who have just left to go pursue other things. They just saw a different mission for what this place is. Okay, and because we pivoted so many times, it's not that surprising. What we hired them in to do might have been very different from what we ended up actually doing, right? But because their value didn't match into this concept of make money, save babies, they ended up leaving because the vision was something slightly different from whatever they had in their mind. All right. So when you get to the storm stuff's hard. There's a lot of breaking happening. That you're losing a lot of people. You're arguing a lot about stuff. And then you start to norm through both losing people and the core group like going together and saying, yep, this is what we're going to do. And also the people in the core group, so long as you have the ultimate same vision, you're starting to take the criticisms into your ideas and concepts, and you're starting to meld together so that you're all focusing in the same direction. That's got to happen. If the culture doesn't move that way, you're just not going to survive, because there's too many people trying to do too many different things, and there's not enough resources to explore all of them. So you have to get that norming piece to start to come together. Now you're starting to get into some really cool stuff, and this is where like the loyalty comes in. This is where the fun part starts to happen. You're like, yeah, we all agree this could be a really cool thing to go and explore. Let's go do that. So then we go do it, and then we're all super hopeful that it's actually going to work. And then it doesn't, and it doesn't, and it doesn't, and it doesn't, or it works somewhat, and we make some dollars that get us to be able to try the next thing, and then we go back to this process of storming and norming and back to performing again. When you start to perform, though, you're starting to see you're working towards some project completion. It's not just trying stuff out. It's not just prototyping stuff anymore in our world. It's not just like trying sales pitches. You've got it. You figured something out. You're starting to actually like sell this thing. It's starting to make sense. That's sort of what happened when we got. So here, I can even show in the sales world, we never really got to here until we started doing communication strategies. We sold, after the first year and a half, we had sold one school, a large enterprise software system that had that personal education plan, call center stuff moved together. And then we sold another 8 over the next year and 3 months or so. Okay, so we had something starting to move in the right direction, but we're certainly not at the like every school we talk to is good with this, or every school, 1 in 10 schools is good with this. It's much more like, they probably called 500 schools and we got 8 of them to buy it. That's not performing. It's something, it was enough money to keep us moving, but it wasn't the thing that was going to make this company successful. So then we start selling the communication tools, and we went from something like 12 to 14 schools that we had sold on that personal education plan thing to we're almost at 100 schools now over the last 2.5 years. Okay, so that is the like 1 in 10, 1 in 20 schools that we talk to. They get it, they want to buy it, which means a lot of the times there's probably another 5 that want to buy it. We just have to get them in the budget. We'll come back around to them the next year, and we're going to start making money off of that. So that was good. That's where we got to performing. We've been doing that well now for the last year, probably 2 years now. The soaring piece is what you're starting to see in Slack right now. Like as you guys were starting, we started doing the acceptance letter piece, and you're seeing a lot of bots. I mean, you're seeing 2 to 4 bot things showing up every week. It's almost 1 a day. That's where you're starting to see soaring happening. When we see 1 a day happening, we're going to be golden. All right, especially if we can keep that going over time. All right, which we may or may not be able to do. We'll see what happens after NACAC. This week, I would expect to see not that much happening because nobody's closing the contract deals because they're all dealing with the NACAC stuff. When we come back next week and the week after that, we should be seeing 1 or 2 a day. If we do, then we're soaring. If we're not, we're still probably like right there, but not quite. I'm sorry. Yeah. NACAC.
Isn't that going to be like a time to sell a whole bunch? So it's probably going to come back with a bunch of boxes.
Should be. So if we don't, then we're not there. If we come back and everybody's super excited, they're like, because I've seen this so many times, come back, we talked to 12 presidents, they were all super excited about what we got, and they all want to buy. None of them buy.
They don't buy. Okay.
If you don't see the bots, we got nothing.
So NACAC, you're not signing the contract.
They're not signing the contract. Yeah, it's only when the contract's signed. So watch your Slack. If you guys start to see, so they're going to come back and they're all going to be super amped up. And that's cool. And you guys can buy into that and see that. And it's good. That's part of startup life and the optimism and everything. But I guarantee Greg's going to come back super pumped. Ben's going to come back super pumped. The whole sales team, they're going to come in here party style on Monday. And I'm just going to be super cynical. And I'm going to be like, okay, I'm glad. Let's wait and see where the lights come on, right? And when we start this, because I've heard that story too many times. But I think this one has an actual good chance of actually hitting it because we already saw some of that happening in the weeks leading up to it. And now you got a whole bunch of people, and we got the sales pitch down, and we should just be pow, 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 pow. So we should see when they come back that starts to happen. But watch for the lights. Don't listen to the hype. Watch for the lights.
All right.
All right. So that's what it's looked like here. What does it look like in Mount Everest? Where are they falling apart? What's not working?
The differences.
Differences, yeah. So like, where do the problems start in this process?
The forming.
The forming. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not great. Like, if that's where you are with your problems, it's probably not a great idea to go do anything, let alone climb a death-defying mountain.
Yeah.
But that is, yeah. So what are some of the forming issues that they're running into?
No one knew each other in that team. Like,
Yeah.
They didn't even like.
Yeah, they're all like strangers, so there wasn't much trust.
Yeah.
They didn't. They didn't trust each other.
As far as the team goals, is probably wasn't there was like separate groups, right, led by a different leader.
Yeah.
I think the leaders probably had like different, like all the groups went up together, but I think the different leaders had like were on different pages on like their goals because, you know, because some of them were more overconfident than others.
Yeah.
Like they had one goal to go up, but I don't think anyone had like individual,
Mm.
like similar goals.
Yeah.
Individually.
Yeah, what they're actually trying to accomplish is different. Their values are actually different.
Yeah, some are just money.
Yeah.
Others is safety.
Yeah. Others is glory, right? Yeah, so let's talk about then, like you guys, right? In terms of the forming stage, where are you? Let's just talk first. And I know we need some forming to happen because you have to trust each other a little bit for this conversation to work. But where are you guys, you think, in terms of the forming stage with one another?
Oh wait.
Inside of the forming stage.
Oh.
Like, are you at the point where you trust each other, where you know what each other's goals are, where you have shared expectations about what you're going to accomplish as a team?
We talking about it for the next project.
Yeah, for the next project. For the next project.
I mean, we haven't really talked
Yeah.
about what goals we want for like. I guess we're doing syllabi first, right? We're recreating it
Yeah.
as a team.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess we haven't really talked about what our goal for that is yet.
I don't think we've talked.
Yeah. So
Other than Cody did.
So basically-
Joked in class.
yeah, so basically nowhere.
Yeah, we need to form.
Yeah, you need to
No, I
form.
think we have to develop trust.
Yeah, I mean,
All right. Well, Drifty
I don't
trust
trust you.
people.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, so trust though. Let's talk about that for a second. So trust is several things. I know that it's just one word here. So when we normally define trust, what we're really talking about is like in culture, we're just saying like I think you're generally a good person. You're not going to do anything to screw me over, right? Which is I think you guys have that level of trust. Probably Sky might be cynical.
I mean, we're talking about the context of just,
Full measure. Yeah, we're just talking about the
those
context
desks,
of full measure.
Nothing
All right.
outside those doors.
Yeah, nothing outside those doors.
you guys
Jeez, man.
I leave my phone on the table,
Dang, all right. So, but yeah, so that's a thing though. You're gonna have to overcome potentially like a personality that is just distrustful. I get that. I'm super cynical, so that's not surprising to me at all. So that's one part of it. Yeah, this is just can you trust the people in general that you're working with that they're not trying to screw you over. The next thing is can you trust them to actually do the work that needs to get done. Do you feel like they're people like you can rely on them, you can lean on them to get the work done and to learn stuff along the way, right? And you guys are probably still figuring all of that stuff out, all right? And then the next piece is once you identify what your team goals are and you come to that understanding, you start to understand a shared expectation, which you guys should have that piece with the syllabi project. It's going to be to do exactly what you did this week, but to do it again as a team, right? So you have some of this, right? Like so there's pieces that are starting to come together. You guys have had some conversations with each other, which starts to build a little bit of trust. How long do you think it would normally take to actually get through this forming page where like you really have trust with one another, you believe that the team you know what your team goals are, you have some shared expectation about where you're trying to go. How long do you think that would normally take for a team and an organization to
I mean, we started a month ago, so. Right?
I guess it depends on how complex what you're trying to do is.
Mhm.
Like for us, in this, it's fairly simple. What the syllabi thing is going to be, or what we're going to try to make it be. So probably takes a shorter amount of time. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I think it depends a lot. It depends a lot on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. It depends on the personality of the team members. It depends on contextually how you're put together. So, like in the military, any of you guys military? You guys, yeah. So in the military, you go through basic training, which is this like 8-week program where they force you to trust one another, and it's severe trust that they push on you, and it's like. It's constant, and you have to you find loyalty in each other for all kinds of reasons. Super high stress scenario. They put you in situations where if somebody fails, you all fail. They put you in scenarios where if they'll make you do things like trust falls and that kind of stuff too. They put you in places because if one of you fails, all of you fail. They really push you to go take care of each other and make sure that it's all taken care of. As a result of that, you start to see people caring for you for their own self-interest in part, but it starts to create this concept of, oh, no, they care for me because they're my brothers. They're the people who are in this together with me. They're in my platoon. They're people who I care for. We're going to be in the bunkers together. And so you start to actually care. And they build that up, and they build it up through movies and imagery and stories and all this stuff as much as it is through the stress and the pushing you together and putting you through different scenarios. So there are ways to make this sort of go faster. Right? Like you guys, the way that you've worked so far have worked largely individually. There hasn't been a lot of need to trust one another except where you need to ask for help.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. That's my thing with this forming right now. Like, in terms of you saying trust is like what people can do, what can you expect out of people, things like that. Like, there's no telling because we've never had to really lean on each other hard.
Yep, which is where that's going to start to happen. And you have two choices to go to when you get there. You can either say, whatever, I'm not going to help you. I just need to get my stuff done. Or you can say, all right, I'm going to humble myself a little bit. I'm going to spend some time with you. We're going to get this thing right. We're going to bring you up to speed so that I can lean on you more tomorrow. Okay? And that's what we're trying to get to. We want to get to the point where you can lean on them more tomorrow. And the funny thing is, man, when you start to do that, when you humble yourself and you go help somebody else with a thing, they're going to start to lean on you more. Which, them leaning on you more, you think it's going to be a burden, but the reality is they're starting to trust you more, which means that you can lean on them more because they feel like, oh, this guy really cares about me, this girl really cares about me, they're trying to help me to be successful, and so we're leaning on each other. So we got to do that. Right? So when you're looking forward over these next couple of weeks, go start leaning on each other. Right?
Yeah, I think in terms of maybe this display kind of says we're working towards project completion, not to performing.
Yeah.
I feel like in terms of our project, even we complete the project, we still might be forming.
You still might be forming. Yeah, for this particular project, yeah. It's going to get way harder, though, to get to that performing stage when we have a not so well-defined structured goal in the project. So I'm giving you that right now, right? And it's on purpose. We're moving through pieces of difficulty, right? So you work individually, you start to get some of this forming stuff, but mostly you can just build your own things, right? That's what you've been doing so far here. We get you up to a level where there's some possibility of leaning on each other, right? And we try and get everybody around the same level. And then after you've demonstrated that, then we bring you together as a team. Now you run into the next thing. You guys have all built the thing that you're going to build together as a team. The hard part is not the code. You already have the code. The hard part is going to be actually leaning on each other and running into these problems and trying to learn how to trust and develop this team mentality. But we're going to get you all the way to performing because I'm giving you a very structured goal. Next round, we're going to take that away from you, right? So we're taking things away. We're making it more and more difficult over time so that you can focus on a particular set of stressors, right? And that's on purpose. Because in part, we want you to really focus on what those stressors are and how they impact you. Okay, this is real fast learning what I learned over 10 years, right? We're doing it in a few weeks, and that's on purpose. Does that make sense? All right. So, forming, you guys are kind of getting there. Have you done any storming yet? So address differences that are, back up. Forming in terms of your relationship to the rest of Full Measure. Where are you guys on that? So let's just talk about the dev team first. because it'll start to show some concentric circles.
I trust you guys a lot. I know you guys every day.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. How did that happen? Why is that?
You're good.
Yeah, there's a.
I looked at your computer. There's a lot of screens. I was like,
They got a lot of screens.
They know what they're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah.
Dr.
So-
Birk.
Yeah, doctor. Yeah. Well, okay. So yeah, you guys hit a couple of things, right? So, and this is how trust is developed. Expert knowledge is one of them, right? So you guys look and you see like, oh yeah, these guys are doing it. They have this thing. There's status, which you see some of that number of screens that we have. The doctor, right? Like those things have an impact on like your mentality. There's authority. There's authority and trust. So we generally trust authorities, and as a result of that, like you just give credit to people who are in a position like I hired you guys. So you assume that I know more than you because I hired you, and I must be pretty smart because I hired you and not all those other idiots, right? Like there is something to that, like in the pridefulness that we have that we are like we start to push that. So,
Also,
yeah,
like you guys are like willing to help. Like I was asking Daniel for help before I knew his name was Daniel. So
yeah, yep,
he was
Yep.
like, he didn't care. He was like,
yeah,
I help you.
yeah. So relational trust is the
And
next.
Justin went through the same internship class.
Yep,
Shared
just
experience, I guess.
yep.
Yeah.
Shared experience.
That's
Yep.
facts.
Yep. Yeah, and that relational trust. So those are all the ways that you develop trust. Okay, so you guys are going to go through that too, right? So you're going to look at each other and as being experts in different areas, and you'll see it's not even just in code, but some of you are going to be better experts at communication or leading the team or planning out what you're going to do or creating the product development, like where it's going to go, what it's going to look like, UX, all kinds of stuff. You're going to start to lean each other on those expertise areas. The authority piece you guys just aren't going to have because you're all same level. Like that doesn't exist. Status wise, you might have a little bit of that happening just from like looking at each other and being like Flatiron, CS at Howard, CS at Regents, GW data analyst. Like there's some like there's probably some like, oh, I think I'm better than, oh, I think I'm worse than happening. Let me just kill that. It's nonsense. You guys are going to learn way more here, especially over the next month and a half, than you've probably learned in any of the things that you've been doing so far. Okay, in terms of actual practical application of things. So try to get past that piece of it. So what's left though, largely, is this relational piece, this relational trust, which is really important. And it's going to continue to be important because what you'll see happen on dev teams, and you guys are going to see that, you're going to see it here. I guarantee it's unfortunate, but it's true. And you're definitely going to see it when you go to other places. There's a pridefulness that gets built up when you're developing code. And what happens, it's like these hills and valleys, man. It's like, oh, I did this really awesome thing. I'm the best coder that I've ever seen. I'm way better than anybody else I know. Nobody in DC can touch me. I could be in San Francisco just leading stuff, right? And then the next day you're going to spend 3 hours looking for a comma, and you're going to be like, nope, I'm an idiot. I know nothing, right? But in those peaks and valleys of what's happening, what starts to happen is you because of the valleys, actually, I think in many ways more than anything else, you start to realize you have a need for affirmation that you're good at this. And as a result of that, when you go and talk to other people, you're going to have a tendency towards saying, I'm better than them. They're asking me for help. I'm better than they are, because it's going to make us feel better about ourselves, okay? And when you get into that, you're going to start to create division between yourself and that person, okay? And so what we're going to try to work on is not doing that. And the way we're going to focus on this, sorry, this is getting like real spiritual, psychological, but what we're going to do, it helps, I'm telling you. What we're going to do is we're going to try to be hopeful for the other person that we're helping. And what I mean by that is we're going to actually want the people that we're working with on this team to become better coders, so that when we get a couple of months into this, we can lean on each other and we're all going to be working at high levels. Okay? We're going to move real fast. It's going to be hard right now, but the more effort we put into one another and making sure that we're all developing our skill sets and getting better and better and better, the more we're going to do well in the future. Okay? So we're going to have hope that each other is going to do well. We're going to want each other to do well. We're going to start thinking about how can I better communicate how to do this particular thing that people keep asking me about. How can I take some time to stop working on what I'm working on and take this knowledge that I've just gained and go like grab everybody and bring them into a room and be like, look, I just learned this thing. It's really cool. How can I, when I'm pulled into a room like that and I already knew it, not get, oh, whatever, I knew that, right? Like you got to pull that stuff back, right? So we're going to focus a lot over the next couple of months on being humble. So just try to like meditate on that. Keep that in your mind. It's real important, okay? Because what you guys have is the relational stuff. It's going to be really important for us, especially as we're building a new dev team, right? You guys come on as junior devs. It's a brand new team. Brendan and Nathaniel, they're old school, right? They're retiring, right? You guys are the new blood. You're going to come in. You're going to make full measure really sick. You're going to build really cool technologies. But in order to do that, you guys are going to have to come up together. You're going to have to push each other. You're going to have to help each other.
Man, you definitely got a PhD for this. I feel like you're ready to, I don't know, climb Ryan or something.
Yeah. We're going to do it, man. Dude, we're going to do such incredibly cool stuff. And it's going to suck to get there. Like, there's going to be real work that's going to be hard. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Like, you guys are going to have a lot. You're going to learn a whole lot. You're going to get to play some games of ping pong. More than that, though, that you're going to get the dopamine response of when you build that first really cool thing. When you guys get visit day done and you get to go in front of the entire office and you're like, look at this, we killed that company. Right? When you do that, you're going to be like, yeah, and I'm better than visit days. I don't know what developers they got going on over there, but we're better than that, and it's just the four of us, and I just started doing this for real a couple months ago. And we're going to do that. Like, that's going to happen. I guarantee it. But in order to get there, you guys are going to have to lean on each other, and you're going to have to build each other up. All right. You have to start to build that trust. All right. The storming piece, another piece of advice I'm going to give you guys on that. This is another thing I learned in the military. Man, they do teach you a lot of stuff real quick. We did an exercise, I remember it very clearly, because we didn't fail very frequently and stuff. And I'm a puzzle solver, so I'm constantly looking for, and I took gifted classes when I was a kid, and we would start every day with some kind of a mind game, right? Of like, how do you solve this problem in a way that you wouldn't expect? Shift perspectives, look at it from another way, read it, with a critical eye, whatever the case may be. And so I'm always looking for what's the trick. There's got to be a way to get through this. It's fast, it's more efficient, it's better. And so we didn't fail very often. And at the time, like, we were all in great shape, and so like physically we just destroyed everything. But we failed at this one thing, and it like hit me really hard. It's that pride thing, right? Like, it hurt. And so I remember it though. And what happened is it was a relatively simple task. It was largely about getting from position A to position B as a team.
Getting
across a room.
Yeah.
And it was outside. It was like on high ropes, but it was the same idea. And there were several ways that you could do it. And we were trying to find the most efficient way. And there were a lot of chefs in the kitchen. And you guys familiar with that term? Too many chefs in the kitchen? Mm-hmm. It's like too many people are trying to cook. Everybody's in each other's way. Nobody's actually getting anything done. You can't bake two things at once, right? So we were doing that. And what we ended up at was failing entirely because we didn't get done in time. We were trying to find the most efficient way, and we didn't even finish on time. What we learned in that scenario was oftentimes the best thing you can possibly do is find a solution, do that solution, and then optimize. Mm-hmm. And that is a great tool set. That's not perfect in all scenarios, right? Find a solution when you're doing surgery on somebody and then optimize is maybe not the best call. But when we're talking about development, it absolutely is. Okay? Software. You can change it. It's no big deal. Find a solution, get it to work, and then go back and fix it up. Okay? So when you guys are fighting about stuff and you're like, oh, we should do it this way, no, we should do it that way, somebody just give in and get something done and then be like, okay, we can revisit that after we learn. Because you will. Like, even just from actually building the thing. So a lot of developers get stuck in this phase of, I have to plan it all the way out. I have to see it all the way through. If I don't understand exactly how doing A is going to affect Z, I'm not going to even start the alphabet, right? And that's a big problem. Because if what you'll notice is that when you get to about J, that's where you really know if you're going to make it to Z or not. So oftentimes you just have to make a decision. I mean, there are some things that you'll ferret out real quick. In the first 10 minutes of the conversation, somebody's going to say something that you didn't think of, and you're going to say, yeah, you're right, and we'll add that in. But after that, if you're 20 minutes into the conversation and you're still at a bypass, just choose one and go do it. And then when you get through it, you're both going to see which path you should have taken, and now you've learned something. You're going to take a pride hit. Somebody is, one way or the other, right, if you're in different directions. But that's all right, because you're going to see where the right way is, and now the next time you're not going to make that mistake. So you have to go choose something and go get it done. All right. So, yeah, forming as a group, forming in terms of the dev team. Let's talk about forming at full measure. Where do you guys feel you are with in the rest of the organization?
And I feel like I trust like you guys, and, like Brendan, Daniel, and Justin. You know.
But the rest of them.
Yeah, what about
No,
the
no,
other
I
side? Yeah, but what about the other side of
Oh,
it?
I mean, well, we don't really have that many interactions with them, but I do, and the interactions I do have always been, so like from that kind of relational trust side of things, they've always been very kind and helpful, and in that sense, it's like I trust, like, in general, if I go to somebody here, I feel like they would help me and that I can trust what they're not going to try to screw me over or something.
I got lunch with the ladies. So.
Oh, nice, yeah.
I'm not a party with a lot of ladies.
Yeah.
Well, there's a ladies Slack channel, so
Oh.
so it's fun.
We're gonna start
Gender division in the
gentlemen's.
office.
I thought the last vestige of segregation was bathrooms, but I guess Slack channels. Yeah, so no, that's great. I mean, that's what you have to do with each other and then with the rest of the organization is you've got to find ways outside of like office hours or even within office hours, but outside of the work that you're doing to interact with other people. Because that's what builds communication fluency, right? Like then you're going to start to be able to have conversations that are at a higher level that move faster because you're going to get to know a little bit more about their personality, and then you can start to have conversations about things that are inside of the organization as well. Yeah, so going out drinking, it's a great way to do it. I stopped drinking a couple years ago, so I lost that possibility, but it is a great way to do it. Or just like grabbing lunch with people, sitting at the table, having conversations with people. That's one of the reasons why we do that. It's the reason why we have an open floor plan so people can actually hear and talk across. The last place we weren't even split like this. Everybody was together in the same room, and that honestly saved us on so many occasions. Just because like I was able to overhear somebody saying that they were going to do something that was going to break production if they went and did that, right? Or they ran into a bug, and so I was able to run over and help them fix it or whatever. So yeah, but that open communication is really important. We're still a really small organization. We're not doing as much to push you guys together right now. We'll start to do some more, especially if we start to make some sales, some more social stuff where we're going to get people together. But in the meantime, try to find opportunities to play ping pong or go grab beers with people or grab lunch or whatever. So, I mean, I still fall in that trap a bit, particularly with the sales team. Like, the sales team hasn't been around for all that long. The only person that's been here for any substantial amount of time is Robbie. And even Robbie, to me, feels like he's young because he's only been here for, he started, I guess, like 2.5 years ago when we first started doing this new sales stuff. But we lost a whole sales team. We had a whole other sales team. And so, like, those guys have come on relatively recently and just haven't gotten to know them as well, which causes problems because then they come and ask stuff and I'm just annoyed with them because I don't have the trust. I don't know that they know what they're talking about, and so I'm like, go figure some things out before you start, which is messed up. Like, I really, that's something I need to work on myself. But that I'm trying to encourage you guys to be better than me, which is not hard to do.
Man,
All right.
humble pie.
Yeah, until the pride comes out. All right, so which of these stages did Everest team have difficulty with? Forming, storming, norming. We kind of went over that. I mean, they started having problems with forming. In terms of storming, did the team come up with a plan for the ascent together? Yeah, like they did something, but like not everybody was in agreement. There were a lot of people who were unhappy with it. They kind of conceded because in the end, they did all have a value that was the same, which was to get to the top of the mountain. Did the team have a cohesive culture or language or plan?
Nope.
Nothing was cohesive.
Let's talk about culture for a second. Do you guys feel like you have a cohesive culture?
Just our
Just your team?
yeah. I mean,
Tested.
we sit near each other. I mean, whenever you need help, we just like come over and ask, and it's like not a big deal.
Yeah. So what makes a culture? Like I think you just mentioned one of the things, but like what makes something a shared culture?
Experiences.
Shared experiences. Mm-hmm.
We're all the same age-ish.
Yeah, that helps.
Freedom, in the sense that like freedom to talk to each other. You feel like open.
Ah. Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you feel like there's this common cohesiveness in the language that you're going to use with each other. That's like what happens when, like, if you were to go to India and you found an American, you're going to start talking to him. Like, there's a freedom of communication there. What else creates culture? What are some other things?
Same like a lot of times like same hobbies and ideals.
Same hobbies and ideals. So values, let's say, right? So what's the values of your team?
That we probably all want to eventually become, like, I don't know, maybe not software engineers, but do something in that field.
Yep. Absolutely.
Shared skills.
Yep. Yeah, some shared skills. Yeah. An interest in technology and languages and that type of thing. Yep.
A desire to like do well here.
Yep. Those are great. Yeah, so a lot of shared values, a lot of shared expectations. So let's go to expectations for a minute. So shared expectations is important. What are some of the expectations that you have of one another that you think you share?
That you don't work when you're supposed to work kind of thing.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, absolutely. People are going to put the work in, if people actually show up. I think another one Logan mentioned is like if you ask for help, you're going to get help. What are some of the expectations that you have of the dev team at Full Measure? Sam's gonna be late. I mean, but that really is like that's part of it, right? Like even these things that are, bad or neutral at the least, like there's still a common understanding and expectation is part of what culture is. So Sam's gonna be late. What else?
Getting help.
Yeah. You can get help at least in some way, right? And there's expectations even around how you can get help, right? Like, so what are some of your expectations about how you can get help? Code review. Like, there's a daily meeting that's going to exist where you have an opportunity to get help on stuff. What are your expectations about getting help outside of code review?
If we just like come up, and if you're not like in the middle of a call or something, you're just like doing work that we could just like ask for help, and then if you're not like too busy, that you could at least point us in the right direction.
Yep, but that's part of the expectation is that we're busy a lot of the time, so you can't just do that all the time. So what are your expectations then if you can't come talk to us right then? Talk to each other. Yep, and then if you can't talk to each other,
Google.
yeah. Well, Google, yeah. But Justin, right? Like, so the tier, just to like put more structure to that, is talk to each other, you talk to Justin, you talk to one of the senior devs, you talk to me. Those are like if those people aren't there, like if you're here by yourself and it's just you and me, come talk to me. Like you don't have to go through every one of those to get there, but that's the general management structure. That makes sense. Help structure. All right. What are some of your expectations about Full Measure?
That you guys aren't gonna die and leave us jobless.
Well, that's maybe a bad expectation, but I mean, I told you guys we ran out of money. We couldn't pay people for 4 weeks. That's the thing that happens. Hopefully, it never happens again. But yeah, there's expectations based on how we've been doing and what we've shown you guys in terms of us selling, etc. That you should have a job. We should actually keep paying you. Yeah.
A month? They still come in?
Yeah, a whole month. Everybody came in. We had almost 40 people working at the organization at that point in time. The worst part about that was when we got through the other side of that, we had to let 10 people go because we didn't have the money.
No way. Oh, man. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm flipping.
Wait, it was 40 full time?
Wow.
Yeah, we had
Really?
almost 40 people full time at that point in time. Yep.
Severance package?
Yeah, we did. So we did. Full Measure's really good about severance in general. So even if we let you go for cause, we still give severance. You guys would be different in that though, just in terms of expectation setting. Yeah, because you're contractors, so it's yeah. What are some of your expectations about Full Measure's values or how they're going to interact with the world of business?
You guys aren't gonna cheat or lie or be dishonest or something like that.
Yeah, I wish that were true.
Oh no.
Sell stuff that you.
Strike two.
Yeah. I mean, I think like there's definitely an intention to not do those things. But I also think like there are times when the truth is certainly exaggerated, if not fabricated, for the purpose.
You're so simple.
Well, it's true. And like Greg, the way Greg will talk to you about it, because I've approached him about this stuff directly before, is from his perspective, he's like, yeah, but it will be true so soon. What does it even matter? It's like, yeah, it will be true because you've decided that it's going to be true. Like you have no evidence that it will be true. And oftentimes it is, because then I go and don't sleep and make things true. But like that's not. But so from his perspective, this is a sales strategy. From my perspective, it's a little shady. But yeah.
It's a sleep deprivation strategy.
Yeah, it's a sleep deprivation strategy.
It's an affirmation.
Yeah. But I think in general we try to be of high integrity in how we deal with our clients, especially with the people that we're selling to, and with the education world and with our business partners, wherever we can be. Anything else? Values, expectations about Full Measure. Bad ones too. I just gave you bad ones after you said good ones. All right. So that's what it's about. Culture is largely about this shared set of experiences, but what it always ends up leading to is a shared set of expectations. You have a culture when you have a shared set of expectations. When there's divergent expectations, you have a very weak culture. Okay. And so it's interesting when you watch the sales team, if you pay enough attention to them, and this happens, I'm not like picking on them per se, it's just that they're in this stage right now, they're still in the like norming process in terms of how they work as a team, how they interact with clients, what their relationship is to like Ben and Greg, what their relationship is in the organization, how they relate to account managers. All of that stuff is still being figured out. There is no, like if you go talk to each one of them about what percentage of a deal they think they should be getting versus the account managers when an upsell is made within so many months, you're going to get dramatically different answers. When you go talk to them about how they report to Greg and Ben and how much they should be listening to Greg and Ben when they tell them to do something, you're going to get dramatically different answers. When you go talk to them about how they excel the acceptance letter and what the acceptance letter looks like, which by the way is the most structured thing that we have available, they're going to tell you very different things about how they sell, what their script looks like, and how they do it. It's a weak culture, okay? That's generally not good. It can work to your advantage. When might something like that work to your advantage?
When you don't know what works and you like try a bunch of different strategies, one might work better and
then you hit that one and you go. And that's part of why this happened actually, is that they were all hired at a time when we were still very much like, I don't know, like we know we want to sell these communication strategy things, but how we sell them exactly, what it looks like, I mean, we're still kind of figuring that out. Like the acceptance letter thing is starting to push us in this is how you do that, right? But generally speaking, we're still kind of figuring that out. And so that's how they got hired in. But the problem is once the expectations are set that we can go in whatever direction we want to, bringing it back together is hard. So not to pick, the dev team had similar issues in multiple points in time over our history, including relatively recently. Like Eric and Jason, who you guys didn't know, but they were junior devs who were on the team for the last like year and a half. Both of them had very strong opinions and very different opinions from the other three developers. They weren't necessarily wrong, they were just different. But the problem is that because we all have to code together, right? If you don't like what we're doing and vice versa, then you're going to constantly be in conflict about that stuff. Now, they came in on a time when we thought we would be able to become more diverse in the opinions that we had and how we were coding, because we were moving towards this microservices architecture, and we're trying to figure out what that looked like and how to do these things. And so we were like, well, let them just try. Let them go in their direction. Let's see what that bears out to be. Maybe there's some real good to that. The problem is that when people split like that, it's really hard to bring the unity back together. And so then once we had learned what worked and what didn't, getting everybody on the same page about that, oh, there's so much conflict. It's really hard. I mean, you guys are going to find, we're going to approach this a little bit differently with you guys, which is very much going to be, there is always an opportunity to have a conversation about a way to do it better. But there are going to be times when we need to be able to get something done, and so we're going to choose a way, and we're just going to go that way. And you might not like it, but we all have to do it, because then at least we all know how it was done. So that when Sky goes into Ben's code and Ben did something even in a way that maybe he didn't like, and maybe even a way Sky didn't like, but when he goes in there, he's like, yeah, but we did it this way, and I understand that because it's the same way we did it, and here and here and here. And so now at least I don't like it, but I can fix it in 10 minutes instead of having to figure out how did we do this thing and why did we do this thing that way. You see what I'm saying? So there's massive maintainability things that come from going in a direction, and this goes back to that what I was telling you guys earlier about sometimes just choosing a direction and going and we'll fix it later. And we might very well find that, like, we might go in a direction and say we have to do this because we don't have enough time, we're just going to go in this direction even if half of us don't like what that thing is, and then a year later we might realize, oh, that was dumb, we should have gone the other way. We'll fix it, we'll go back, it's all good, right? But we just have to get on board and say, okay, we're going to go in a direction, and that's the direction we're going. And then go do. Here's one of the things too. If it's ever the case that you're like, I totally disagree with what you're saying, Sam, we should have gone in this other direction, all you have to do is prove it. And what I mean by that is go home, spend the weekend, spend some nights, whatever, work on it to show me why the way that you're trying to do it is actually better. If it's real, we're doing it that way. Like, I'm not messing around. The only reason why I'm disagreeing with you and going the other direction is because in my mind I think that the other way is better, and I don't have to prove anything to myself because of the position I have to be in, right? But you guys can totally, if you bring me real numbers, we're going to go in the other direction, okay? Or even just like show me it's cleaner to code this way in general, and here's some of the reasons why that's the case. We'll go in that direction. I'm not just trying to win. Sometimes maybe, but ultimately not, and you can call me out on that crap too. But it really is, there are going to be times when I'm going to say we're going this way and you're not going to agree with it, we're going to go that way. But we can fix it. We can always fix it. It's never a closed story. We're just not going to sit there and argue about it in the theoretical. Yeah. If you want it to go the other way, I need reason. I need to see the code that makes going in the other way a better way of doing it. All right? All right, cool.
Sorry to cut it.
Oh yeah, sorry buddy. We are basically there anyway. We did a whole lot of really good stuff today, I think.
I enjoyed this team. We should do it again sometime. Trust is increasing.
What are we doing on Monday?
What are we doing on Monday?
Or what's the next step for
So keep working on your stuff to get it better through Monday. Monday at 11:15, we are going to do our first planning. So we'll do a throw on issues that I've created. Mostly I'm just going to copy from what we did last time and bring them in. You guys will throw on them again. We'll actually look at what the previous team threw on them and have some conversations about that. And then you guys will start working. Tuesday, we'll do design. So you'll present how you're going to approach your issues and how you're going to get them done. Wednesday, we will... normally you would do a demo at that point, but you guys won't be quite ready for that yet. So probably on Wednesday we'll just have a catch up. Where's everybody at? We'll probably do that Thursday, Friday. Monday, ideally you've finished at least some of your issues, and we'll do a demo. Tuesday we'll do a real demo for the rest of the office on where you are with it, just so you can we did something. You have real deadline and stuff.
So was it done by next Tuesday?
The whole thing, everything. Not just that would be awesome.
I'm not
but
scared.
Yeah, I'm not scared. Yeah, stone face. It'll just be what you guys did over the last 2 weeks, plus a couple other things to fill in work that needs to be done, because it just won't take. The whole team can't work on those 3 screens. Okay. But it'll be that plus a couple other little things. Right? And then when we'll finish that, we'll just drop syllabi. We'll say whatever the summer interns did that, and that's whatever. That's a crappy product. We're gonna go take out
Visit
visit
days.
days. Yeah. So
Why is syllabi a crappy product?
no, it's not. I'm just messing around. No, it's great. I'm just saying it's that the summer interns did it, and you guys are gonna do better. Yeah.
Why
No,
does
I
it
mean
really even-
syllabi was a brainchild of mine. Like I thought it was awesome.
Why are you guys like not trying to sell it?
So we just honestly don't have the resources for it. It does require, well, first of all, that we actually complete it all the way to where it needs to be.